Good afternoon and salam Malaysia Berani. This is World Today. I'm Brendan Lepore. Before we begin, here are today's top 10 stories. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres is calling on Israel to halt its demolition of the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency's East Jerusalem compound and other UN premises. He urged Israel to restore them to the world body without delay. EU lawmakers have agreed to hold off ratifying a key trade deal with the US. This is following President Donald Trump's tariff threats over Greenland. The parliament is planning a vote on removing tariffs on US industrial goods as part of the agreement. The US forces seized another tanker in the Caribbean, claiming it was operating in defiance of Trump's established quarantine of sanctioned vessels. It was the seventh such apprehension since the start of Trump's campaign to control Venezuela's oil flows. Mexico has sent 37 alleged members of criminal organizations to the US, marking a new mass transfer under bilateral crime-fighting cooperation. This is the third mass transfer of suspects under Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum's term. Australian Parliament has passed tougher gun control and hate crime laws in response to Bondi Beach shooting. The laws passed both houses with support from the Greens Party. Thailand's Prime Minister has ordered swift disbursement of financial aid to residents affected by incidents along the Thai-Cambodian border. More than 460,000 households will receive the assistance, with an allocation of 2.34 billion baht. France's Prime Minister made use of a special constitutional power to force part of his 2026 budget bill through the lower house of parliament. The government expects the budget to be definitely passed in the first half of February. One person died and 4 were seriously injured after a train near Barcelona ploughed into the rubble of a collapsed wall. It was Spain's second deadly rail accident in days. Nakhon Ratchasima has become the focus of Southeast Asian para sports as the ASEAN Para Games was officiated through a meaningful opening ceremony. The Malaysian flag was flown proudly during the parade of contingents. Buda Glim pulled off a stunning upset in the Champions League, beating Manchester City at home to secure their first ever win in the competition. Following the match, City are 7th in the table, while Buda Glimt are 27th. And that's today's top news in a quick snapshot. Up next, the complete World Today Bulletin, delivering the details that matter. Stay tuned.
Dunia digital penuh dengan kandungan ganas, eksploitasi kanak-kanak dan buli cyber berleluasa di luar kawalan. Akta Keselamatan dalam Talian 2025 atau AMSA dikuat kuasa untuk melindungi rakyat. Pengguna boleh bertindak atas kandungan yang berisiko. Setiap laporan yang dibuat, platform digital wajib bertindak pantas terhadap penyalahgunaan digital. Dengan AMSA, internet kini lebih selamat untuk kanak-kanak dan keluarga kita.
United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres is calling on Israel to halt its demolition of the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency's East Jerusalem compound and other UNRWA premises. He urged Israel to restore them to the world body without delay. Deputy UN spokesperson Farhan Haq said the Secretary-General views as wholly unacceptable the continued escalatory actions against UNRWA, which are inconsistent with Israel's clear obligations under international law.
UNRWA facilities are United Nations facilities. An attack on UNRWA is an attack on the United Nations. And we believe that they should not be left unaddressed and unresponded to. We hope our international partners across the board will see this situation in which our facilities are being demolished as unacceptable.
Israel demolished structures inside the UNRWA's East Jerusalem compound after seizing the site last year in an act condemned by the agency as a violation of international law. Surrounded by Israeli forces, bulldozers razed several large buildings and other smaller structures inside the compound. The European Parliament's main political groups announced that they would hold off ratifying the trade agreement reached between the European Union and the US. This is following US President Donald Trump's tariff threats over Greenland. The Parliament is planning a vote in the coming weeks on removing tariffs on some US products as part of the agreement. EU leaders are set to hold an emergency summit in Brussels tomorrow over the US threats against Denmark's autonomous territory, Greenland. However, by suspending approval, it does send a strong message of discontent to the White House that EU lawmakers argued would unnerve American businesses. Trump previously said, starting 1st February, the US will impose 10% tariffs on all goods from Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, Britain, the Netherlands and Finland, due to their opposition to his plan to take control of Greenland. Those tariffs would increase to 25% on 1st of June and would continue until a deal is reached for the US to purchase Greenland. The US military said it seized a Venezuelan-linked tanker in the Caribbean, marking the 7th such apprehension since the start of US President Donald Trump's month-long campaign to control Venezuela's oil flows. The US Military Southern Command, which is overseeing nearly a dozen warships and thousands of troops in the Caribbean, said it apprehended the motor vessel Sagitta without incident. It said the seizure demonstrates its resolve to ensure that the only oil leaving Venezuela will be oil that is coordinated properly and lawfully. Trump previously said the U.S. plans to control Venezuela's oil resources indefinitely as it seeks to rebuild the country's dilapidated oil industry in a $100 billion plan. The vessels intercepted in the past have been either under U.S. sanctions or part of a shadow fleet of ships that disguise their origins to move oil from major sanctioned producers. Mexico has sent 37 alleged members of criminal organizations to the U.S., marking a new mass transfer under bilateral crime-fighting cooperation. This is the third mass transfer of suspects to the U.S. under Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum's term. With the latest transfer, 92 alleged criminals have now been handed over to the U.S. during the current administration. Now, the move comes amid tensions with Washington over efforts to curb drug trafficking. Last week, Sheinbaum and U.S. President Donald Trump spoke by phone, ruling out any U.S. military intervention in Mexico. This is after Trump suggested on Fox News that strikes on land targets could be used against traffickers. Yesterday, Trump said his administration would very shortly begin targeting drugs entering the U.S. by land without giving details.
Guna mentol jimat tenaga untuk lebih jimat.
Australian Parliament has passed tougher gun control and hate crime laws in response to last month's Bondi Beach shooting during a Jewish festival. The gun control laws, which establish a national firearm buyback scheme and tighten import controls, passed both houses with support from the Greens party. The legislation will strengthen background checks for gun license holders and applicants, improve information sharing between security agencies, restrict gun imports to Australian citizens only, and impose tighter limits on the types of firearms that can be imported. The hate crime laws will grant powers to designate organizations as hate groups, allow a minister to cancel or refuse visas, for individuals who spread hateful or extremist views and introduce tougher penalties for advocating violence or preaching hate to children. Thailand's Prime Minister Anutin Chanvirakul has ordered the swift disbursement of financial aid to residents affected by incidents along the Thai-Cambodian border. The move follows approval from the Election Commission of Thailand, allowing the caretaker government to proceed with the assistance after Parliament was dissolved last December. The Prime Minister's office spokesperson said the Cabinet had approved funding under the 2026 central budget to help affected households. A total of 467,128 households will receive assistance, with an allocation of 2.34 billion baht, aimed at providing immediate relief to communities impacted by actions of foreign armed forces. Tensions along the Thai-Cambodian border have eased following an immediate ceasefire agreement signed late last month. A commuter train derailed after a containment wall fell on the track due to heavy rain near the Spanish city of Barcelona, killing the driver and seriously injuring 4 passengers. It was Spain's second deadly rail accident in days. The Civil Protection Agency said a retaining wall collapsed onto the tracks, causing an accident involving a passenger train in the municipality of Gelida, around 40 kilometers west of Barcelona. Catalan Emergency Services said their teams treated 37 people, mostly for light injuries, with 20 ambulances at the scene. The latest incident is likely to raise more questions about Spanish rail safety. In a previous accident on Sunday, 2 high-speed trains collided in the southern region of Andalusia, killing 42 people and injuring more than 120. A sightseeing helicopter went missing near a volcanic crater on Mount Aso in Kumamoto Prefecture in southwestern Japan, with wreckage later found in the area. 2 passengers from Taiwan and the 64-year-old Japanese pilot were aboard the helicopter, which departed from a zoo near Aso. According to the helicopter operator, Takumi Enterprise, contact was lost about 10 minutes later. The missing chopper was on a 10-minute tour offered by the zoo. The helicopter was on its 3rd sightseeing flight of the day when it went missing, and no abnormalities had been reported during the first 2 flights. The local government has reached out a Taiwanese organization in Fukuoka, given that there is information that the 2 passengers were travelers. A heavily damaged object resembling the body of a helicopter was found on the slope inside the crater of Mount Nakadake, one of the 5 peaks that make up Mount Aso. And still ahead, French Premier forces part of budget bill through lower house. Stay tuned.
Bersihkan penapis penghawa dingin dan tetapkan 24 darjah Celsius untuk lebih jimat.
Welcome back. France's Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu made use of a special constitutional power to force part of his 2026 budget bill through the deeply divided lower house of parliament without a vote. Lecornu invoked Article 49.3 of the Constitution on the income side of the legislation to get it through the lower house, where it had become deadlocked after 3 months of discussions. In response, opposition parties, the Fronts Unbowed and the National Rally are expected to file no-confidence motions against the government. Lecornu and his government, however, appear to have won enough political backing, notably from the Socialists, to survive the no-confidence votes, which are likely to take place on Friday. The legislation is due to head to the Senate next before returning to the lower house. Lecornu will also need to force the spending side of the budget bill through the lower house before a final push on the overall package. Sukarno's minority government expects the budgets to be definitely passed in the first half of February. Venezuela's top lawmaker Jorge Rodriguez said a reform of the country's main oil law will be based on a partnership structure first introduced during President Nicolas Maduro's administration, though he provided no details. The reform is expected to be debated for the first time this week. The country's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, told lawmakers last week that the government supported changes to the hydrocarbons law to boost foreign investment.
Para lograr eso, se necesita asegurar que esa inversión extranjera va a estar protegida y al mismo tiempo va a ser rentable para las personas que hagan esa inversión. Por eso se probó con el mecanismo de los CPP, y el mecanismo de los CPP es la clave para el aumento de la producción petrolera en condiciones de bloqueo y en condiciones de sanciones. Aún a pesar de ello, hubo un aumento importante de la producción que llegó a 1.200.000 barriles en los últimos meses del año pasado. Entonces es un elemento fundamental para que sea plasmado en la reforma de la ley.
The law has a single contract model of joint ventures controlled by state company PITSA, but the country has been introducing so-called productive participation contracts for new partnerships in recent years. US President Donald Trump marked the first anniversary of his return to office by touting what the White House described as 365 accomplishments. He released a lengthy document and showcased it during a press briefing at the White House. Trump entered the briefing room to applause and said his administration has delivered more achievements in its first year than any other in modern history, citing military actions, border enforcement, economic growth, and foreign policy.
We have a lot of accomplishments, and as you know, this is the anniversary, first anniversary, January 20th, and it's been an amazing period of time. We have a book that I'm not going to read to you, but these are the accomplishments of what we've produced. All page after page after page, individual things. I could stand here and read it for a week and we wouldn't be finished.
Trump also stressed that his administration had done more than previous governments by far, particularly in ending wars and rebuilding U.S. military strength. Wildfires that flared up again in Franschhoek, east of Cape Town, forced firefighters to battle shifting flames as strong winds pushed the blaze across dry vegetation in the valley. Thick smoke turned the sky grey, reducing visibility and complicating efforts to contain the fire along steep mountain slopes. Firefighters worked to prevent the flames from spreading deeper in farmlands, where orchards and vineyards form a key part of Franschhoek's economy.
This season has been really, really hard. The conditions that we're facing, a lot of wind, a lot of dry vegetation, and that has resulted in fires really growing rapidly. Traditionally, we can catch the fire when it's small, but with the winds and the wind factor, these fires are becoming really large really quickly.
Authorities are concerned about the losses already sustained by the agricultural sector. Large areas of the Western Cape have seen repeated fire outbreaks in recent weeks, and the Franschhoek blaze is among several incidents placing pressure on provincial response teams. A heavy dust storm swept across Libya, reducing visibility and forcing the suspension of flights at two international airports. The eastern city of Benghazi, the second largest city in Libya, and the area most severely affected by the storm was seen covered with a dense orange haze. Flights at Tripoli's Mitiga and Benghazi's Benina airports were temporarily suspended due to bad weather conditions. In 2023, thousands of people were killed and thousands more were reported missing in the eastern coastal city of Derna after floods caused by a huge Mediterranean storm. Next in sports, several Malaysian doubles pairs advance in Indonesia Masters. Setia. Several Malaysian doubles pairs, including the top women's combination of Tan and Tina, marched into the second round of the Indonesia Masters Badminton Championships in Jakarta. The top-seeded Tina had to slog for a 21-15, 20-22, 21-19 opening round win over Francesca Corbett and Jenny Guy of the United States at Istora Senayan. World number 2 Tina will next face Taiwan's Lin Xiaomin and Wang Yuqiao. Gozafe and Nur Izzuddin Muhammad Rumzani, meanwhile, needed 31 minutes to subdue Chen Ji-yi and Presley Smith, also of the United States, 21-15, 21-17, to check into the second round of the men's doubles event. Also advancing to the next round is Malaysian pair Man Wei Chong and T Kai Woon, who are also the tournament's third seeds. They comfortably defeated Chang Ko Chi and Paul Li Wei in straight sets 21-13, 21-6. However, world number 2 Aaron Chia and Sobo Yik suffered their worst outing in 3 months after crashing out in the first round of the tournament. Aaron Yik went down 22-20, 19-21, 16-21 to Denmark's Daniel Lundgaard and Mats Vestergaard, marking their first opening round exit since the Denmark Open in October last year. After 18 years, Nakhon Ratchasima has once again become the focus of Southeast Asian para sports. At the 2025 ASEAN Para Games was officiated through a meaningful opening ceremony. Cheers from the audience accompanied the historic moment as the ceremony began with live music performances that brought the atmosphere to life. The rhythm of the ceremony was elevated to a different dimension through a blend of arts and culture, where laser technology was integrated into performances. Each carried its own unique message and was enlivened by a spectacular fireworks display. The excitement peaked with a video screening of the athletes before the parade of contingents began, featuring the entry of national flags and athletes from the 10 competing nations. The Malaysian flag was flown proudly during the parade by national badminton player Nur Zamizatul Shafiqah Muhammad Zambari, with the national contingent led by Chef de Mission Muhammad Zarawi Ravi Abdullah. The opening speech was delivered by the president of the ASEAN Para Sports Federation, Major General Osod Pavilai. The climax of the evening saw the torch relay before athlete representatives lit the cauldron, greeted by a burst of fireworks to signal the official start of the biennial games. Cambodia's withdrawal from the ASEAN Para Games in Thailand has not affected the national contingent's targets, with Malaysia still aiming for 181 medals in the biennial games. National Sports Council Director General Jeffrey Ngadirin said the assessment of the contingent's target was made after a structured process, with most sports having finalized their plans through their respective team managers' meetings. Out of the 181 medals, Malaysia is targeting 55 gold medals, signaling a strong determination and aspiration to create history in the increasingly competitive regional games. Malaysia is sending 353 athletes who will compete in 18 sports contested. Athletics and swimming are expected to be the main gold medal prospects for the national para contingent. Badminton and cycling are also expected to strengthen the country's medal chase. In European football, Norwegian side Bodø Glimt pulled off a stunning upset in the Champions League, beating Manchester City 3-1 at home to secure their first ever win in the competition and keep their slim hopes of making the knockout stage alive. Danish striker Kasper Hu got proceedings underway with a rapid double midway through the first half. He scored his first with a superb header through the legs of Gianluigi Donnarumma, and minutes later he added a second with a pitch of a finish curled in at the right-hand post. In contrast, City striker Erling Haaland was anonymous as his teammates struggled to get him the ball. City's struggles to create opportunities were exploited just before the hour mark, when Jens Petter Hauge scored a brilliant third with a curling shot in the 58th minute to set the club on course for a shock victory. City pulled the goal back through Ryan Cherki on the hour mark, but captain Rodri was sent off 2 minutes later for picking up 2 yellow cards in the space of a minute, derailing their attempted comeback. Ahead of the rest of the week's fixtures, City are 7th in the 36 team table with 13 points, while Bode Glimt are 27th with 6 points. Ivan Toney hit a hat-trick as Al Ahly hammered Al Khalij 4-1 to move up into second in the Saudi Pro League. Greek winger Georgios Masouras gave the visitors the lead with a 19-minute header. Toney then equalized just before the hour mark and added 2 more within 20 minutes to turn the tie on its head. Saudi defender Ryan Hamed Hamidou made it 4-1 in the 86th minute to put the result beyond doubt. The win sees Matthias Jaisler's side overtake Al Nassr by 3 points, with Cristiano Ronaldo's side to face Damak tomorrow morning. And in tennis, Jannik Sinner made a winning start to his Australian Open title defence, but former champion Naomi Osaka made the biggest splash on day 3 of the tournament with a dazzling entrance before her match. Sinner, who is aiming for a 3rd straight title at Melbourne Park, spent only 68 minutes on court in his first outing of the 2026 season before Hugo Gaston retired because of injury while losing 6-2, 6-1. Sinner will next play against Australian player James Duckworth. And that's it on World Today. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and Saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Brendan Paul. Salam Malaysia Madani. Have a great day ahead and take care.